You know that feeling when you're coding and you get a sense of déjà vu? Like, wait a minute, didn't I just type these exact same lines of code 5 minutes ago? It happens to everyone, but there's a much smarter way to work. Today, we're going to dive into a concept that will make your code so much cleaner and easier to manage. We're talking about procedures. Seriously, getting this down is a total game changer for building bigger and better things.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll shine a light on a classic coding headache, the copy-paste problem. Then, we'll introduce the hero of our story, the procedure, and see how it helps us clean up that mess. But wait, there's more. We're going to hit a little snag, which will lead us to the real power tool in our toolkit, parameters. All right, let's get into it.
All right, first things first, let's get a really clear look at the exact problem we're trying to solve here.
Okay, so imagine a really simple program like this. We've got two buttons. The plan is for one to show odd numbers and the other to show even numbers. Seems easy enough, right? But the real story, the interesting part, is what's happening in the code behind the scenes.
So let's peek under the hood at the code for each button. Do you see it? The code for the first button is practically a mirror image of the code for the second one. They both set up a variable, clear a label, and then run a loop. The only, and I mean only, tiny difference is the number that loop starts with. This right here, this is the copy-paste problem in the wild.
And this brings up a huge question. Why on earth would we do this? Think about it. If you find a bug or you need to make a change, now you have to remember to fix it in two different places. That's just asking for trouble. It might seem like a small deal here, but imagine a big program with hundreds of buttons. It would be an absolute nightmare to manage.
Thankfully, we do not have to live like that. It's time to introduce the elegant solution to all this repetition.
So, what is a procedure?
Well, you can think of it as a named chunk of code. My favorite analogy is to think of it like a recipe. You write down the instructions for baking a cake just one time. You give it a name like Awesome Chocolate Cake, and then whenever you want that cake, you just follow that recipe. You don't have to figure it out from scratch every single time.
And the way you build one is super straightforward. You just start with the word sub, you give your procedure a unique name that makes sense, you put all the code you want to reuse inside of it, and then you close it off with end sub. That's literally it. You've just packaged up your instructions, ready to go.
Okay, so that's the theory. But how does this actually fix our messy button problem? Let's apply this right now and watch what happens. We are about to go from that before state with messy, duplicated code everywhere to a much happier after state, where each button just makes one simple, clean call to our new procedure.
And here it is. Check it out. We've taken all that code that was in both buttons and we've moved it into its very own procedure. We called it show odd or even. Now, all that logic lives in one single, tidy place.
Now look at the code for the buttons themselves. It's amazing. Instead of a whole block of code, each button's click event is just one single line. It just calls show odd or even. This is so much easier to read and, more importantly, so much easier to maintain down the road.
We've definitely cleaned up our code, and that's a huge win. But, in programming, sometimes solving one problem just reveals a whole new one.
So our code is way prettier now, no doubt about it. But here's the million-dollar question. Does it actually do what we wanted it to do? Does one button show odd numbers and the other show even? Let's find out.
And, when we run the program and click the buttons, they both do the exact same thing. They both show the odd numbers. But why? Well, if you look inside our new procedure, the loop is hard-coded to always start from the number 1. So our procedure is clean, but it's not very flexible, is it?
This is where we level up. To make our procedure not just reusable, but also flexible and smart, we need to add one more incredibly powerful idea.
And that idea is the parameter. Let's go back to our recipe analogy. A parameter is like a customizable ingredient. Your recipe might say add some sugar, but a parameter lets you tell the recipe exactly how much sugar to add each time you use it. It makes that one recipe adaptable for different tastes. So here's how we put it to work. Right in the definition of our procedure, we add a parameter and we'll call it start. Then, inside the procedure, we find that hard-coded number 1 and we replace it with our new start parameter. Just like that, our procedure is now ready to take directions from the outside.
So how do we give it those directions? We use something called an argument. If the parameter is the placeholder in the recipe, the idea of an ingredient, the argument is the actual real value you pour into the bowl. It's the 1 cup of sugar,
or in our case, the numbers 1 and 2.
And here it is, the final, beautiful piece of the puzzle. Now, when button 1 calls our procedure, it passes along the argument 1. And when button 2 calls the very same procedure, it passes the argument 2. We're using the exact same block of code, but we're giving it different starting instructions each time.
And what's the result? It works. It works perfectly. The first button correctly shows the odd numbers, and the second button correctly shows the even numbers. We did it. We now have code that is clean, reusable, and flexible. That is a massive win.
So let's do a super quick recap. Procedures are your absolute best friend for fighting that copy-paste monster, making your code way cleaner. To make those procedures truly powerful, you give them parameters to make them flexible, and when you call a procedure, you feed it arguments to tell it exactly what to do.
By really getting this one concept, you've totally changed how you can solve problems with code. You've basically unlocked the ability to build way more complex and solid apps with a lot less effort. So the only question left is, what are you going to build with this new power?